Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am your host, Amanda Farmer, and we are heading out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. We're also going out to LinkedIn. We are going out to YouTube. How has your week in Strata been? I hope it has been as productive, as fulfilling, as busy as mine has been. It has been a busy week for me indeed, as it always is at this time of the year, especially. I know many strata managers tuning in will be feeling it too. There are some pretty heavy client expectations at the moment, wanting everything done before Christmas, because apparently January doesn't exist. It's not coming. It's not going to happen. I was on a call with a bunch of strata managers just an hour or so ago, and they were all saying the same thing, that the demands are ramping up. Everybody wants everything done. So if you're taking the time out to be here with us live today, I think that is fabulous, and I appreciate you and thank you for being here. If you're catching the replay, that is awesome too. I know so many of you catch the replay over the weekend or the following week, so special hello to you. If you're coming on in live, or even if you're catching the replay, feel free to drop me a hello here in the comments. I always come back around and check in on those comments. Lots of you here live with me right now and saying hello. Cheryl is here saying hello. Hello, Cheryl. How are you doing? Good to see you today. Shana is tuning in from Coffs Harbour. Lovely to have you here with me, Shana. And Petra is here saying good afternoon. Hey, Petra. How are you doing? Now, I am in my home today. This is my home office / studio here, and I have set aside an hour to spend with you on today's Friday Live. If we need all of that hour, I am here for you. One caveat to that: I am the only adult in the house at the moment. Usually on a Friday afternoon by this time, I have my husband here ready to supervise children and canines, and he's away at the moment, so he is not here today. So I don't know what might happen. The Simpsons is on next door. You might be hearing a little bit of that. My 10-year-old watches The Simpsons. I watched The Simpsons when I was 10 years old. It never seems to die. So currently occupied. Dog's currently occupied. We'll just see what happens next. That's all part of the fun of Friday Live. More of you coming in and saying hi. Hey, David from Neutral Bay. Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Daryl is saying that he is putting a pause on Frantic Friday to listen to the good word. Awesome. So glad that you're doing that, Daryl. Well done. Lovely to have you here with us. It's going to be well worth it. Trust me, it's going to be well worth it. Casey is saying hi from Canberra. Lovely to have you with us, Casey. Thanks for joining. All righty, so a bit to cover today. Yes, we are going to have a look at this week's podcast episode, have a chat about that. I am going to do something that I have never done before, never done on live, never done before, I don't think. I'm going to take you inside our members only Q&A forum. And I'm going to show you the kinds of questions that I get asked there and that I answer for our members. I'm going to show you how I do that. I have many members who understand how busy that forum is, and a number of colleagues, lawyers, strata managers who have a concept of what I do there in that forum and say, Amanda, how do you do it? How are you able to answer upwards of 150 posts, 150 questions in a month over in that forum and still run a legal practice and run the rest of the membership and do what I do here live? So I'm going to show you a bit about my process inside that forum by answering, I hope, a couple of questions live. I'm going to share my screen with you and take you on in and give you a bit of a tour, and in the process answer some strata questions, which is what we love to do here on a Friday. And we're also going to talk about homicidal cockatoos. Yes, they will make an appearance here on the show today. So settle on in. I am ready to go. We'll see how far we get before I get an interruption from the other side of that wall. It's bound to happen. I just have a feeling this afternoon it's going to happen. It could come through the window, could be a cricket ball, could be anything. Anything's possible. Alrighty, so have you managed to listen to this week's podcast episode. For some of you, this will have been a revisit to my chat with Michael Ferrier from Ion Property Inspections, a revisit because Michael was here. He was here on Friday Live about a month ago. I was in Sydney at that time. I was about to get on a plane to go to Melbourne and then the next day head off to Hawaii. And Michael agreed to join me for a chat about Strata books and records. So what Michael and his team do at Ion is they get engaged often by purchasers who are looking at buying into a Strata building and they want to understand what's going on in that building. So they have Michael or one of his team make an appointment with the Strata manager to go and inspect the books and records to gain that understanding of what's been happening at meetings, what the levies look like, whether there are any building defects, what the red flags are. And Michael had reached out to me before we had that chat. He'd actually heard me on a different podcast speaking with Veronica Morgan and Chris Bates on the Elephant in the Room property podcast. He tunes into that. He'd heard me speaking to Veronica and Chris about the difficulties that I was hearing owners were having, purchasers, new purchasers into Strata were having difficulties understanding what was going on in a building because they weren't able to access either at all or access accurate, up-to-date books and records. And Michael reached out to me and he said, Amanda, I get it. I see this all the time. We too, as professional records inspectors, are seeing a substandard level in some Strata management companies when it comes to the management of books and records. And I'd be happy to come and chat with you about that on the podcast. So we ended up doing it as a Friday Live, first of all. And this week it went out in an edited form as episode 339 of the podcast. So if you haven't caught that one yet, there's a link here. Christina's helping me out today. She'll pop a link here in the comments for you to go and check out that episode. I asked Michael whether these quality issues were real. Is this something that he sees at his end? He said absolutely. He said almost always there are documents missing from the records. And fascinatingly, he said sometimes we've inspected the records 5 years before when they were held by a particular management company. Time has passed. The building has transitioned over to new management. We're inspecting the records 5 years later for a different client. And we know that records are missing because we have records from 5 years previously that are just not there anymore. And we're able to actually supplement our report because we're lucky to have those records. So we talked about records going missing in that transition process between Strata managers. We talked about a lot of things, but one point that Michael made really stood out to me. And in my email today, when I was inviting you to join us here on Friday Live, I characterize this as what I felt was the most powerful point that Michael made. And for those of you who've listened to the chat or listened to the episode, you might be able to guess where I'm going with this, or what I think the most powerful point might have been. But Michael said, your records, the books and records of your owner's corporation, the books and records held by your Strata manager, reflect, my words, reflect the health and the attractiveness of your building. They are a statement for what kind of building we're in, what kind of building we are investing in, what kind of building we're living in. That's the standard of your building is reflected in your records. And I thought that was so insightful. Michael, I've pulled out in my notes here some words that Michael used, but do go ahead and listen to the episode. But he said there's no doubt that buildings that have better information, more detail, an annual chairperson's report, for example, an active Strata committee with detailed minutes of Strata committee meetings, those buildings, said Michael, look like better buildings and better communities for owners. When compared to the ones where there's skimpy records, there's deferred decisions about spending money. And he said, I think there's a lesson. There's a lesson for owners in this. And he referred to a friend that he has who has just bought into a building, taken over the job as chairperson on the Strata committee. And his friend is really trying to develop that idea of more transparency, more detail, more inclusion, how to take people take owners, take prospective purchasers on a journey. It's about setting a plan, reviewing it, doing an annual report that's attached to your notice of AGM. And the result of that is going to be a better community, but also better value in terms of property values. These properties are going to be more attractive to buyers. So I really love the way that Michael articulated that. In the chat, I went on to say how pleased I was he was raising that, because we talk about good record keeping a lot on the podcast. We talk about it here on live, and I'm often encouraging owners, committee members to have regular committee meetings, if only to develop that paper trail, to develop those good records that then tell a story about what's happening at the building, whether it's a story to current owners, so there's transparency there, or it's a story to prospective future owners, so there's value there for purchasers. Lots of great points in that podcast chat. Another one was that Michael pointed out, these are your records. The books and records of your owner's corporation are your records. Every owner has a right to access, to inspect those records. They're not the records of the strata manager. They're not owned by the strata manager. And sometimes there is a misunderstanding about that. And criticism can often be leveled at strata managers for the way that they are managing your books and records. But you as owners have control. You have control over that process. You are able to, there is a process to be able to check in on your own records and check up on how they are being managed. And Michael talked about taking ownership of that management task. And if you're not happy with the way that your records are being managed, then bring it up, raise it with your strata manager, discuss how there might be a better way. But your records shouldn't be set and forget. And you shouldn't assume that they are being handled in the way that you would like to see them handled. You can absolutely access them. You have the right, I should say, to absolutely access them and check up on them. I put it that way, you have the right to, because I know, working with so many owners, that it is not always that easy to access your records. And I know many of you who are tuning in, who have tuned in the past when we've been talking about this topic, will tell me, Amanda, I hear all that, but I request access and I can't get it, or for whatever reason, records are going missing. I think for anyone who hasn't thought about this, thought about record keeping in this way, that you do have the right, the authority, the power to check up on your own records, definitely take that first step. And what may flow from that, you don't know. But hopefully most professional, experienced strata managing agents are able and willing to give you full access to your records and to be able to take on board any suggestions and requests that you might have for better management of those records. So if you've had a listen either to that live chat or the podcast, or listening to what I am summarizing here for you today, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on what Michael had to offer. I know when we were chatting to Michael live a month ago, many of you were here and really enjoyed that chat. And that's what clues me in to the plan, to the idea, to the need to bring that chat to the broader platform of the podcast. So always feel free to let me know what it is that you're enjoying here on live so we can share that more broadly. Daryl is saying, we face owners and sometimes their relatives who call up and make demands that we email them information when they want it. When we ask to verify their authority to do so and advise they need to schedule a time to come and do the inspection of records, they are furious. Yeah, very good point, Daryl. As I said, there is a process. There is a process to be followed if you would like to access and inspect your records. Absolutely, in our Strata Schemes Management Act, you have a right as an owner or a person authorized by an owner to inspect the records of your owner's corporation. But there is a process in our legislation for agreeing on a time, a date, a method for that access. And it's not fair, I think, on our strata managers to be ringing up or emailing and saying, please send me this, that, and the other, and expecting it can just be flipped to you. Our strata managers are managing potentially hundreds of buildings and thousands of owners. And if that was the only thing they were doing all day, sending documents out to owners who request them, then they wouldn't get any of that higher level, more valuable work done. So thanks for reminding us of that, Daryl. Megan saying, any sporting endeavours this weekend, Amanda? Megan is referring to my partial triathlon that I participated in a couple of weeks ago. And I shared a little bit about that with you on live the couple of days before I was due to do the 20K bike ride in a triathlon, participating in a team for a friend. All went well, as I posted later on the page, and thank you everybody for your support there. But this weekend, no plans this weekend. I've been busy flitting back and forth between the city and the country the last couple of weeks, and am about to dive into the Christmas rush with social occasions and friends and family. So I am looking forward to a quiet weekend. No sporting endeavours planned. Something might crop up, but no sporting endeavours planned. Thank you for checking, Megan. All right. If you're coming in, if you want to say hi, if you want to drop me a line and say something about Strata, is usually, or sporting endeavours are good too. Feel free to post in the comments there. I can see lots of you coming on in. I'm wondering if you are looking forward to having a little sneak peek at our QandA Forum. If that's why we have a surge here of live viewers ready for me to take you inside our members only QandA Forum and take you on a spin there. That is coming right on up. First of all, though, I want to take you over to some homicidal cockatoos. Shall we do that? If you were here on the page earlier this week, you may have seen me post this story. A cockatoo has been caught on video dropping pot plants from Melbourne apartment, and council warns residents. Look, this is amusing, but incredibly dangerous. I'm going to scroll down to the footage itself. It's footage of a cockatoo dropping pot plants from an apartment balcony. Bizarre and fascinating behavior, says an expert. I believe that expert is a cockatoo expert, not a Strata expert. I'm going to press play on this, and I understand the vision itself is enough, but there is some audio too. There's our friend, just dropping bombs. Quite lucky that nobody was hurt, and if you could hear that pot plant just hit that car pretty hard there. The birds were apparently a discussion point among locals, with a resident of a nearby apartment slipping a note underneath her cafe door to apologise for feeding them. So here's the thing that caught my eye from the Strata context. There was obviously a resident who was attracting these birds by feeding them, and has then realised, oh no, I've attracted terrorist birds, and that's probably not a good idea. I have certainly been involved in cases, I can think of one in particular, and a couple that are close to my heart, a couple more that are close to my heart, that involve residents feeding birds, and then other residents, committee members, complaining about those birds, about that activity, because the birds were bringing what was thought to be disease, mess, rubbish, potentially murderous behavior, now we see. So I'm interested if anyone tuning in has experienced that in their building, or has been involved in any conflict around this concept of feeding birds. If you're in an urban area, we're often talking about pigeons. And the thing with pigeons, I've come to learn, is that they find a place to roost and then they keep coming back to that place. So once you've got a pigeon problem in your building, it's really hard to get rid of pigeons, certainly in a humane way. So I know a number of buildings that have bylaws that prevent residents, or attempt to prevent residents from feeding birds, and warn residents against that. Some people love to do it. They love to have birds around, but that doesn't suit everybody, and it's not always in the best interests of everybody's health. And now, as we can see, safety. So this person had been feeding the cockatoos for ages and noticed them dropping things. She apologized because she thought it was her fault. But whoever's being quoted here said, I think it's fun. Looks pretty dangerous to me. So that's in Melbourne. And apparently the council, I'm just going to scroll down, the City of Melbourne Council encouraged building managers and residents to remove pot plants and any other sources of food from balconies to avoid attracting wild birds. So I don't know if this is just a thing limited to the cockatoos in Victoria or whether we're going to see more of this. Apparently they're getting into the bins as well. But keep an eye out. And that was my community service announcement for everybody here on the page when that article was brought to my attention. And I know a few of you appreciated that. Alrighty. Yes, we do have the link. Thank you, Rochelle, for popping that link here. Here we go. I told you it wouldn't last. I told you this piece wouldn't last. That's my Louis. Louis, who's my oldest dog, he's quite smart, and he has worked out that when I'm doing this, I'm not to be interrupted. So he likes to scratch on the door, but he won't scratch on the door while I'm talking. So as long as I keep talking and he can hear the way I'm talking like this to you guys, he knows that mum is occupied and won't scratch on the door. The minute I stop at 5 o'clock or thereabouts, he will scratch on the door. Can't hear me anymore. She's done. I'm going to scratch on the door. And often at 5 o'clock, those who've joined me on Friday Live as guests before in person will know this. When I finish and hit that end broadcast button at 5 o'clock, I actually sit down and I watch it back. I watch it back because I want to engage with your comments and I want to make sure that I've picked up everything, that I've said the right thing, that if there are any corrections to be made, that I get on top of those quickly, and that I can keep delivering the best content in the most engaging way that I can for you. And I find that the best way to learn that and to get better is to watch it back. I listen to all the podcast episodes before they go to air so they can be edited. I watch all the live videos back. So my Friday Live actually goes till around about 6 o'clock. But I sit here quietly, and that's when Louis thinks I'm done. So he starts scratching on the door, but I let him in there. He's allowed to come in there. Heading over to those comments, Marianne, welcome Marianne, nice to see you. Marianne saying pigeons do carry disease. Cockatoos can hurt children taking food from them if they're on the balcony. They can also damage buildings, eating any timber in the structure. Ooh, termite cockatoos. Hadn't heard about that before. Absolutely agree with you, Marianne, about I'm well aware about pigeons carrying disease. We have had problems with that in my own building in Bondi. Anyone who's in a similar area will may have had a similar experience with pigeons. And yeah, we can see from these cockatoos here that we've seen in Melbourne that they absolutely can be dangerous. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Now, next year will be 10 years since I started my legal practice. And when I started Lawyers Chambers, my legal practice, I decided at that moment that I would be a specialist strata law practice, that I would only do strata. I'd always done a little bit of strata when I was employed as a lawyer. Probably about 25% of the work I did was strata then, but I loved it so much. And when I started my own practice, I thought, if I don't stop and ditch the other stuff now and just focus on strata, I never will. So when I started 10 years ago, I went, that's it, strata and community titles. And I had to get clients. I had to get out there. I had to introduce myself. I had to make myself known to the industry associations, to the owner groups. The OCN was certainly around then. I had to go out to strata managers and share my knowledge and allow them to see that I had expertise and experience. I may have been the new kid on the block in those days, but I knew what I was talking about. And I would go and deliver education sessions. And I would physically go to strata managers' offices and spend a morning delivering education. All of the things that you now see me do online, I would do in person, as many lawyers and educators in this space were doing back then. And when I spoke at events, whether it was for the OCN or the SCA or a local council, for example, I'd spend an hour and a half delivering as much information and knowledge as I could. I would always leave time, as I still do today, leave time for questions, but guaranteed at the end of the evening, there would still be a long line of owners, of strata managers, of building managers wanting just 2 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes of my time to answer just one more question for them. And if you received my email this afternoon, if you're on our mailing list, you would have seen I put a photo up there from 2019, almost 3-4 years ago, where I was delivering an education session for Waverley Council. And I think it was Michelle, who is still working with me. Michelle took that photo of a lineup of, I think in the photo you can see 8 or 9 people lining up, waiting to ask further questions. And I have got into the habit now, on the rare occasion when I still do live presentations, of putting actually that photo up on a slide and saying, please guys, don't do this to me tonight. My feet hurt, I'm tired, I'm hungry. If you have more questions, then the best place to go is to our members only Q&A forum. And many people in the room at any event, as you are here on live today, many of you will be members. Others at events, I'm encouraging to become members so that they can have that ability to post their questions and to have those questions answered in writing by me inside our forum. And what I want to do today is to take you over into that forum and show you exactly what's going on over there, because some of you may have heard me talk about the forum. Many of you are here every Friday with questions. I can only ever answer a limited number of questions here in this format, but the place where all of the action is happening is over in our Q&A forum, which is really the flagship of our online membership community. So the membership is more than just the forum, but the forum we find is the most popular part of the membership. So I am going to share my screen with you now and take you on over to the forum. I've already logged in. And some of you, I am mindful, will be on mobile. You might want to come back and watch the replay of this so you can have a closer look here. I've tried to make this as large as possible. And I'm just going to settle in here because I'm going to drive this a little bit. I'm also going to keep my eye here on the comments if anyone's got any questions or comments as we go. This is the homepage of our forum. And these are the posts that you can see members have posted recently in the forum, some as recent as 7 hours ago, some as recent as an hour ago. The titles here are grayed out because I've actually gone in and answered those. They've already been opened at my end, so that's why they're grayed out there. But our forum, whenever somebody posts a question in the forum, they're prompted to give their question a category or choose which category their question falls into. And these are the categories in the Dropbox drop down here. So the beauty of this drop down, which I only realized recently, is that it tells us the most popular topics. So you can see here, just competing with the common property topic, the most popular topic here is meetings, followed by common property. We'll ignore podcast because that's just where we post the podcasts each week. Bylaws. So top 3 topics in our forum: meetings, common property, and bylaws. And then moving down, 4th most popular there is the committee. And what you're seeing on your screen here, I believe this is a little bit different to what our members actually see. You've got a little inside information here because I'm not sure that our members actually see the views. I can see all the views here on a particular topic. So shower noise, for example, has had 145 views with the last interaction 7 hours ago. So that's a popular topic there. Daryl is saying the forum is my secret weapon to expand my knowledge as a strata manager. Oh, thank you so much, Daryl, for sharing that. Maybe not so secret now. Daryl posts great questions in the forum. I've actually got one up here to feature. And now that you're here, I might make sure I do that, Daryl. So what I do pretty much every day is I log onto the forum and I see what new questions are there. I need to give a special shout out to Christina and Rochelle, who actually send me a digest at the end of each day, letting me know how many new questions are there and how long they have been there. So I can immediately go to the oldest question. It might be 2 days old, 1 day old, and I can open that up and answer that. So every day I'm reminded what's going on in the forum, so I can head over there and check in. And I said in my email today, if you're not on our mailing list, by the way, over at the website, yourstrataproperty.com.au, you can sign up for our mailing list and you'll get these emails that I'm talking about. I said in my email today ahead of live that this is my preferred way of answering questions because I'm not on the hop at the end of a long presentation and a busy evening. And I can sit down and I can have a drink of something nice next to me that gets the creativity going. I can relax. I don't get hungry. If I do, that's easily solved. So the forum is my happy place to be. Now, today I have saved up a question. I was in here this morning and I got a little bit excited, forgetting that I planned to do this with you this afternoon. And I started answering questions and didn't leave too many for me to answer here live with you, but I will share some of those answers, some of those questions that I have already answered. One that I have left open, and I've left it open for a little while because I've wanted to do this for you this afternoon, is a question here from CMP. And we use pseudonyms in the forum, so our new members are prompted to anonymize themselves and choose a username just so that we can all communicate freely. You don't know if your Strata manager's in there, your Strata manager doesn't know if you're in there, and it makes for some more open conversation. So CMP has said in this question here, hi Amanda, during recent annual fire safety statement inspections, the fire inspection company determined that a fire door needed to be replaced due to the occupant's dog scratching through the outer layer of the door. I totally get it, CMP. That's what happens with Louis here at my door. But this compromises the door's fire rating. The door was replaced, and I'm looking to determine the correct process for charging the door's replacement and the painting of the door back to the owner of the apartment. We have a damage to common property bylaw that I think would adequately cover that a breach of the bylaws was made. The damage to common property bylaw is the standard model bylaw. Any owner or occupier must not mark, blah, 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 damage or otherwise deface any structure that forms part of the common property. The question that CMP has for me is, do we first request the owner to reimburse the invoice to the Strata scheme? And if they're unwilling to pay, do we need to take them to NCAT for a ruling? Or can we simply inform the owner and add the cost to their Strata bill? Now, CMP is guessing the former. Now, I'd love to know if anybody who's tuning in here on live has a view on this, it has an idea of perhaps what my answer might be here. This is an owner whose dog has damaged a fire door by scratching. There has been a cost to the owner's corporation. The owner's corporation has replaced the door. They've paid for the replacement fire door. And we're being asked here, how do we recover that cost from the owner? Can we just enforce the bylaw because they've breached the bylaw? Or do we have to go to NCAT and get an order? Alrighty, so I've read that. I have a few ideas in my mind for that, and I'm going to answer CMP's question. If anyone wants to join in and help me, I'm going to keep an eye on those comments here. And I'm going to say, hi, CMP. And my system here tells me that CMP is new to our community. This is the first time CMP is posted. So I'm going to say, welcome to the forum. I also think this is a great question. And you're on the right track thinking that simply adding the cost to the owner's Strata bill, inverted commas, is not the best way to go about this. All right, so CMP has told us that their bylaw is the simple model bylaw. Must not mark, otherwise damage, deface any structure that forms part of the common property. Unless your bylaw empowers you, the owner's corporation, to recover from the owner the costs of rectifying damaged common property, you're going to be on pretty shaky ground to on-charge that cost to the owner. Instead, and this is where our legislation becomes relevant, there is a section in our Strata Schemes Management Act that says if there has been damage to common property and an owner's corporation wants it fixed, the owner's corporation can go to the tribunal and seek an order that it be fixed, or if the owner's corporation has already fixed it, the owner's corporation can recover the costs of that fix. So as I'm answering this question, I'm thinking in my mind, what does the law say? And is there a specific section in our Strata Schemes Management Act that might help CMP here? Now, I've just pulled up, I'm going to flick over to our legislation here. I've just pulled up the Strata Schemes Management Act. I use OSLI here, that's what I prefer. And my memory is that it's somewhere around section 130, this provision about rectification where work done by owner. There you go, section 132. I think I've opened this up earlier today. And it's not going to be there. Nope, there it is. So under section 132 in our New South Wales legislation, the tribunal may, on application by an owner's corporation, make either of the following orders if the tribunal is satisfied that work carried out by or for an owner on any part of the parcel of the scheme has caused damage to common property or another lot. So the tribunal can order that the owner or occupier performs the work or takes other steps specified to repair the damage, or the tribunal can order that the owner or occupier pay to the owner's corporation the specified amount for cost of repairs. So I've looked at that section. I've thought to myself, that is precisely the section that is going to help our friend CMP. And what I tend to do, I've just, because I'm sharing my screen, I don't think I'm able to copy the link here. But what I do is copy the link to that section and then head back over to CMP. Have a look at section 132 of the Strata Schemes Management Act. And you'll see that the owner's corporation has the right to apply to the tribunal for an order that it be reimbursed its costs incurred in the fix. So as a first step, I suggest you write to the owner of the lot, refer to section 132 and this right to claim reimbursement in the tribunal, and see if you can't reach agreement on that without the need for litigation. Then what we do is correct all the typos. That is necessary, absolutely. And I'll go back and fix that at a later date. Let us know how you go. And that's it. So that is how we answer a question in the forum, a great question there from CMP with reference to our Strata legislation. I'm not going to post that one right now because I've got to fix it up first and make sure that it is correct. I am just seeing a comment here from Bill and Ben. I know Bill and Ben and I have discussed this previously, perhaps here on live. Bill and Ben saying, I still think empowering bylaws are dubious because of what the High Court has said about the power to make regulations and bylaws. I've also seen some NCAT members frown on them, but others like them. I think the members that frown are the more knowledgeable ones. Really interesting watching you work. Oh, cool. Thank you very much, Bill and Ben. That's indeed what I wanted to show you all today. Empowering bylaws, Bill and Ben's talking about this idea that we can give owners corporations powers that they don't otherwise have in the legislation by designing a bylaw that says, well, you can't usually charge extra costs and collect extra costs that aren't strata levies from owners. But if you have a bylaw that says there is a fee, there is a penalty, there is an expense that can be recovered from you if you breach the bylaws, then you're allowed to. I think most strata lawyers, Bill and Ben, take the view that that's possible, relying on those tribunal decisions that where it has been upheld to be possible. But I definitely take your point that it isn't an arguable one. So Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I'm going to head over to another post here. This might even be, I think I have a post here from Daryl, who, if he doesn't mind me outing him, I think he's already outed himself, asked a very on point, very good question about restricting business types in commercial strata recently. Daryl said there was a request at a commercial property asking for a bylaw to be drafted that would restrict certain types of businesses being able to operate at the property, like mechanics, etc., because they feel that certain businesses would make life hard in nearby units with their need for parking outstripping what is available. Daryl, who is switched on, said, I would have thought a bylaw like this wouldn't work, as the owner would be free to operate business based on council zoning and approvals and not be limited by the owners corporation. What are your thoughts? So here, this is one that I've answered earlier. Great question, Daryl. The tribunal has found such bylaws to be invalid because they are harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive. And I've got a link there to a case that I teach in one of my webinars. I think it's the SIK case, S-I-K case. While every situation will be different, I do caution buildings against making bylaws that outright ban something that the council would permit with development consent. So I think you've got a problem where it is a commercial property, Daryl's told me, and attempting to restrict certain commercial uses by way of a bylaw where the council would otherwise, the local council otherwise says these uses are fine as long as you have development consent. I think you're going to have a problem there with those kinds of bylaws. And Daryl said, thank you, and that's very helpful. As Daryl said earlier, the forum is his secret weapon. Interested to see if you took that one back, Daryl, to the community and shared some of that guidance and see what the community had to say about that. Shauna is asking, is there a service whereby an owner can employ someone who is licensed to work for one owner in a strata building? Sorry, Shauna, gonna need some more background on that one. That one is not landing with me. Just give us a little more on that. Daryl is saying very helpful information, and I've gone back to the committee about that today. Awesome. Let us know how you go. Come back around to the forum, Daryl, and update us on that one. All right. Now, I've told you that the forum is only one part of our membership community. We have other resources inside the membership that I'm often directing members to in the forum to better answer their questions and encouraging members to go over and check out those resources to be able to put a bit of flesh on my answers in the forum. So I do have an example of that, which I will attempt to walk you through. Here's one also that I haven't yet answered in relation to air conditioners. I'm not going to read all of this out here, but it is essentially, the question is essentially, if we're installing an air conditioning unit and there is a part of that equipment is going on the roof, does that change the external appearance of a lot? And if it does, the short story is, if it changes the external appearance of a lot, then it can't be considered minor work under our New South Wales legislation. It gets bumped up to the level of what we would call major work, even though that term's not used in our legislation. But because it changes external appearance, it needs approval at a general meeting by special resolution, rather than the minor work level of approval, which is only an ordinary resolution at a general meeting, or approval by the Strata Committee if the Strata Committee has been delegated that task. So a good question here by Leaf, where Leaf is saying, if the compressor is on the roof for a top floor lot, does that change the external appearance of a lot? It's not visible from the street, but anyone from a higher floor building blocks away or zooming in on Google Earth will see it. Does that make it a major renovation? And would the compressor being on the roof need a higher level of approval? Now, when I read forum posts like this, I'm often thinking, this forum has been running for 6 years now, and I'm often thinking, there are other posts almost exactly the same as this, where this question has been asked. So what I often do in that circumstance is I go to this search feature here, and you can see I did this earlier today, the external appearance question. What is a change in external appearance all about? I know I've discussed this in the forum previously. So I'll search that term, And it will take me to many other posts here that mention external appearance. And I'm scrolling down here, change to the external appearance of a fence, bylaws affecting common property, visible appearance of a lot, penalty order, for sale signage. I'm looking for air conditioning because I know I've answered a question previously about air conditioners on an outside wall. Here it is right here. I will open that one up and have a look to see if this question might also help Leaf's question about changing external appearance. And indeed, it seems to be on point. Installation of an air conditioning unit is minor work, section 110 of the Act. That is, unless the installation will change the external appearance of the lot. If that's happening, see this discussion here. So I've discussed it in another forum post. The point that I want to make, and what I'll do when I go back and answer Leaf's question about changing external appearance, is that our legislation does actually say changing the external appearance of a lot. It doesn't say changing the external appearance of a building. So the section 110 minor work lists the categories of minor work, but it says that minor work, it says that work that changes the external appearance of a lot cannot be considered minor work. It doesn't say work that changes the external appearance of the building. Okay, you're picking up on the distinction. The external appearance of the lot being the external appearance of the apartment, of the unit, not the external appearance of the building itself. And I think in Leaf's example, where the compressor is going on top of the roof, we might be, maybe stretching it, perhaps changing the external appearance of the building, but we're not changing the external appearance of the lot. So Leaf will have to go and have a look at the existing bylaws, but I don't think just by that fact, it is necessarily pushed out of the category of minor work under our legislation. But this is where I'll look up similar posts, and I'll direct our members to similar posts where the same question may have been answered previously. And this is where I've referred to this section 110(7)(c). Section 110 cannot be relied upon to approve work that changes the external appearance of a lot. So if that's happening, as it often is with air conditioning units on balconies, the approval threshold is pushed to a special resolution. And if the lot owner is going to take on responsibility for future repair and maintenance of common property, a bylaw should be put in place as well. So I will link to those forum posts to be able to further assist Leaf there in the answer to that question. And I may even go across to the legislation once again and check that my definition of what a lot is actually matched by what's in the legislation. Christina, I'll just get you to moderate that chat for me. And to work out what the definition of a lot is in the legislation, we're going to go to section 4, definitions, and we're going to see, is lot in here? Look at that. There's 43 mentions of the word lot. That's not very helpful, Amanda, so we won't search it that way. We will actually go down to L. L for lot. Lot in relation to a strata scheme has the same meaning it does in the Strata Schemes Development Act. That's helpful. So then we go over to the Strata Schemes Development Act, and I'm just right-clicking on all of these, and it takes me just down layers and layers of legislation. And I go to the definitions in the Strata Schemes Development Act, and I find the definition of lot under L, which is here. Lot in relation to a strata scheme means one or more cubic spaces shown as a lot on a floor plan relating to the scheme, does not include any common infrastructure unless the common infrastructure is described on the plan in the way prescribed by the regulations. So I feel fairly confident that having checked that, I can go back to Leaf and say, this section in 110 about changing the external appearance of a lot, it doesn't apply to you where you're changing the external appearance of the building. And I may link to those sections of the legislation so Leaf can go through and have a read of those as well to follow through my reasoning. So this is what gets me excited, guys. This is what I enjoy doing of an evening, is digging into these questions and this legislation and empowering others, showing others, as I'm doing here with you today, how to do this as well. So that I find many of our members who have been in the community for a number of years, then are coming into the forum and are helping to guide other members through this process as well, having seen me do it in the past for them previously. Oh, and that's exactly in this post here what ATIC has done for Morton. If you're just coming in and looking at this forum and looking at these strange names, these are all pseudonyms that we use in our forum. Morton had asked a question about submissions to NCAT. And Morton had said, what should be in my submissions? Am I correct in supplying witness statement or a stat dec? I'll send a counsel report, further emails. What is the next step after presenting submissions in the tribunal? There's so many dates leading up to a hearing. The submissions have been presented ahead of times. And ATIC, who is a fellow member, very experienced, successful member, and I know ATIC has had great success in the tribunal unrepresented, has said, hi, Morton, before Amanda provides more info, please note high-level advice is that your submission outlines your orders being sought and arguments or reasons for seeking the orders. I've jumped in to say thanks to ATIC, and here's another example of where I might link to other resources inside the membership. When I was hearing about Morton having to tackle this issue of submissions, then I remembered that I had a member call with a member who was preparing for NCAT and had asked me this exact question. And I'd actually, in a video quite similar to this type of video, had walked that member through how to prepare submissions for NCAT. That member was Terry. Terry had a different type of application, but I know that listening to that call is going to be helpful for Morton. And in this answer, I'm just explaining the difference between submissions and evidence. And we look forward to seeing how Morton goes in the tribunal. Alrighty, so that is a flying tour of our member forum inside our online membership community. This is why when I'm here on live, I'm on our shorter Ask Amanda Now sessions, and I'm hearing from you, Amanda, I've got more questions. You didn't get to my question. I've got a spreadsheet full of questions that you send to me that I get to if I can. If I can't get to your question, this is why I'm directing you over here to the forum, because there is so much that's going on over here. If you want to join our forum, not just our forum, but our entire membership community, then it's super easy. You'd want to head over to stratamembership.com. Christina's going to put that link to in the comments here for us, stratamembership.com, for as little as $67. That gets you immediate access to this forum. You can start asking me questions straight away and having those answered. You can also book in for your member call and access our complete templates library and our resources library to get you on your way to more peaceful and more profitable apartment living. So those many of you who I know are here, who are members, I see your names here regularly. Thank you for your support inside the membership. I know you know how valuable this is. The others who have been thinking about it and not quite sure what it's all about, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight, at least into our Q&A forum and how my process around answering what can be hundreds of questions over a month. Some weeks are busier than others, depending on what's going on. But it is something I genuinely really do love to do. It helps me, increases my knowledge, keeps me on my toes. I had a barrister the other day asking me, Amanda, how do you know these strata cases? Often I'll be talking to barristers about a strata situation, and I'll say, no, there was a case on that. There was a case on exactly that point where the lot owner did this and then that happened. How do you just sit there and read cases all day? No, I don't. I sit there and answer forum questions for most of the day. So keeps me on my toes for sure. I'm just going to scroll back up to these comments here. And I know Shauna gave me some more background information, I think, to her question. So owners are unable to do something due to health or old age, Shauna's asking. Is there a service where an owner can employ someone to work for one owner in a strata building? I'm still not following that, Shauna. If anybody else is following what it is that Shauna needs there, I'm happy to answer that for you, but I just need to, so that I can be helpful, have a better grasp on that question. Someone who is unable due to health or old age to do work. What kind of work? What kind of work, Shauna? And then if they employ someone to do something for them. Not quite clear on what that question is. Good one to put in the forum. Good one to put in the forum. So this is what we do in the forum when I have a clarifying question, is to post that in and ask for more information, and then we can go back and forth and be able to drill deeper into that problem so that I can best solve it for you. All right. Now, we have almost got to 5 o'clock. Time has flown. Haven't had any interruptions. Haven't had any interruptions from what is happening on the other side of that room. So The Simpsons is going really well on the other side of that door there with my young son and our 2 dogs. I don't think the dogs are watching The Simpsons, but clearly it's a hit otherwise. It has been lovely to share this afternoon with you, all of you who have been here live, tuning in, very engaged. I can see those of you who are catching the replay. Thank you very much for spending the time. If you have more questions that have come about through having a look through the forum and understanding what goes on inside our membership community, then please do feel free to send them our way. Next week, we're getting to the pointy end. Next week, I'll be here. I think I'll be here. I don't know what even the date is next week. I should be here on Friday. It will probably be an Ask Amanda Now session next Friday. I'll look forward to diving into just one Strata question next Friday and catching up with a few of you then. Thank you, Cheryl, for your thank you. You have a great weekend too. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend in Strata. Enjoy. I'll see you next week. Bye.